In today's Fullerton Factor, does market volatility make you nervous? Stephanie shares a strategy that just might help you feel more confident. Stephanie?
Thanks, Megan. As you mentioned, I want to touch on the big questions that retirees are asking today. In fact, I want to focus on the biggest concerns that people just like you in and near retirement are having to address. Number one, outliving your money. How do we make sure that what we've saved up lasts as long as we do? Now, there's a lot of different variables in this area, but the number one area of concern is going to be inflation. The cost of everything around us is going up, and that will continue into the future. The problem is we just don't know how much more. So, for a little bit of history, I did some research. We'll start with gasoline. Let's hop in the time machine back to 1970. How much do you think a gallon of gas cost back in 1970? Maybe you guessed about 80 cents. And to be honest with you, I probably would have guessed around the same amount unless I did the research, which shows us back in 1970, a gallon of gas was 35 cents. What's interesting is, at that time, you would get your gas pump for you, you would get your windshield cleaned, they would check your fluids, a lot was taken care of for you. Now, what about today? How much does a gallon of gas cost us? Well, if we look outside the gas pump, we can see that today gas costs $2.48 a gallon. And unfortunately, no one's pumping our gas anymore, wiping off our windshields. That's all on our own. Now, what's another frame of reference we could look at? How about housing? A lot of people remember their first house. I've got a question for you. If we go back to January of 1975, how much do you think a brand new house would have cost? Maybe $50,000? Not too bad, you're pretty close. In fact, it was $39,500. I'll tell you what, I'll take that deal any day of the week. Now, how about today? If we look at today's home values to build a brand new home across the United States, the average is $400,200. That's a huge difference in value. All right, there's one other area that I want us to look at. And this is the trusty old McDonald's menu from the 1970s. Now let's imagine that you had $5 back then. You could have walked into McDonald's and you could buy the entire menu out with that $5. And what I want to concentrate on in this area is the area of coffee. You see that coffee costs 15 cents at McDonald's? Well, what if you took that same $5 and you could have bought the whole menu with, and you tried to now buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks today? You might get a full cup of coffee, or they might just give you a half a cup. This shows us that the cost of everything around us continues to rise. Where we're going in the future is anybody's guess. Next, on our list of concerns is risk and volatility. Now, we've all seen the risk and volatility that has occurred in the stock market over the past 20 years. Back in the early 2000s, we had a big crash, and back in 2008, we had another big crash. The bigger concern for people in retirement is, what happens if I'm withdrawing my money from my accounts at those periods of time? What you'll note is you're going to begin to cannibalize the principal value, time and time again. Whenever we're creating income in retirement and we increase the volatility, we have a greater likelihood of running out of money during those crashes. The next concern that we see is healthcare cost. I don't have to tell anybody out there that healthcare is costing more and more. In fact, a recent study showed us that a married couple 67 years old will spend about $325,000 extra dollars, not covered by Medicare or healthcare related expenses during their retirement. Next, taxes. Now, we all know that recently we had a big change to the tax code. Biggest change in 30 years. While some of the brackets have dropped, retirees face different taxes than other folks. Tax on Social Security, tax on your Medicare, and a number other extra taxes that can affect your retirement if you don't plan properly. So obviously, taxes are a big concern. And this all leads to our final concern, which is, how much can we spend in retirement? So you've worked 20, 30, 40 years to save up all that you have. And during that period of time, you were stacking your money on top of money, and the money was sitting on the side, growing based upon the booming economy and good interest rates. And everything worked out. And here you are. You're in or near retirement, and you're having to start drawing from your savings. This takes a different mindset. It's hard to spend when we're used to saving. Now, on top of that, I ask you the most important question. As you're beginning to spend that money and needing to answer this final question, do you have a strategy in place that addresses inflation, risk and volatility from the stock market, healthcare costs, and taxes? Until you have a strategy in place to answer all these concerns, it's very difficult to answer the most important question. How much can you spend in retirement?